Welcome back to Britology. Today we're diving into one of the most debated policies in the United Kingdom, and one that has sparked outrage, protests, praise, and plenty of confusion: the London Ultra Low Emission Zone, or ULEZ. This is a scheme that at first glance looks simple. It's meant to clean up the air in London by charging drivers of older, more polluting vehicles a daily fee if they drive within a designated area. But as with many things in Britain, the reality is far more complex. To understand why the ULEZ has become so controversial, we need to look at its purpose, how it actually works, the people it affects, and the wider political and social arguments that swirl around it. The basic idea behind ULEZ is straightforward. London, like many large cities around the world, struggles with air pollution. Vehicle emissions are one of the biggest contributors, and these pollutants are linked to thousands of premature deaths each year, along with health issues like asthma, lung disease, and heart problems. So to tackle this, Transport for London introduced the ULEZ, starting in the central parts of the city and gradually expanding it outward. If your car, van, or motorbike doesn't meet modern emission standards, you're required to pay a daily charge to drive within the zone. For cars, that charge is £12.50 per day, and for larger vehicles it can be even higher. The idea is to discourage the use of polluting vehicles and encourage people to switch to cleaner options, such as newer cars, hybrids, electric vehicles, or public transport. On paper, it sounds like a win-win situation: cleaner air, healthier Londoners, and a push toward a more sustainable city. But in practice, things are never quite so simple. For many Londoners, and indeed for people living in surrounding towns who drive into London for work or family reasons, the ULEZ is not just an environmental scheme, it's a financial burden. Critics argue that the policy hits hardest those who can least afford it. Think of small business owners who rely on older vans for their work, pensioners who drive older cars, or families who don't have the budget to trade in their perfectly functioning vehicle for a newer compliant model. For them, paying £12.50 every time they drive into the zone can add up quickly, becoming unaffordable. This is one of the reasons the ULEZ has become such a lightning rod for anger. Opponents say that while the policy might be well-intentioned, it is fundamentally unfair. They argue that it punishes ordinary working people, while wealthier Londoners, who can easily afford the latest vehicles, are barely affected. Some see it as yet another example of the capital being run for the benefit of the privileged few, while ordinary families and workers are left to pick up the bill. Supporters of the ULEZ, on the other hand, counter these arguments by pointing out that the scheme really does make a difference. Data from Transport for London suggests that air quality has improved significantly in areas where the ULEZ has been introduced. Levels of nitrogen dioxide, one of the most harmful pollutants, have dropped by almost half in central London since the scheme began. The number of non-compliant vehicles on London's roads has also fallen dramatically, meaning more people are switching to cleaner transport. For those who live in polluted areas, especially children growing up in busy parts of the city, the health benefits are real and measurable. Advocates argue that the long-term gains to public health and the environment outweigh the short-term inconvenience and costs. Still, the politics around ULEZ cannot be ignored. The expansion of the zone in 2023, which saw it extend to cover all of Greater London, triggered a fresh wave of anger. Suddenly, millions more drivers were brought under the scheme, many of whom live in outer London boroughs where public transport options are less reliable. For someone living in central London, it's possible to get around easily without a car. But for those in suburban or semi-rural parts of the city, driving is often a necessity rather than a choice. For them, the expansion felt like a direct attack on their way of life. The backlash has been strong and sometimes dramatic. There have been protests, legal challenges, and even acts of vandalism, with groups known as Blade Runners taking it upon themselves to disable or destroy ULEZ cameras. Politically, the scheme has become a dividing line. Some see it as an example of bold leadership in tackling climate change and public health, while others see it as an overreach by city authorities. A tax by another name that disproportionately hurts working people. It has even played a role in national politics, influencing debates during by-elections and drawing attention from government ministers. who question whether local councils should have such powers. Another layer of controversy comes from how the money is used. Critics often argue that the scheme is more about raising revenue than about saving the planet. Every non-compliant car that enters the zone brings in cash for transport for London, and skeptics suspect that financial motives are driving the policy as much as environmental ones. TfL insists the money goes back into funding public transport and improving infrastructure, but that doesn't stop the suspicion. When people are already struggling with the cost of living, it's easy to see why a daily driving charge feels like just another squeeze on their wallets. The debate also touches on bigger questions about fairness and the transition to greener living. Everyone agrees that pollution is a problem, but the ULEZ highlights the difficulty of moving society away from fossil fuels without leaving vulnerable groups behind. For example, while there are scrappage schemes offering money to help people replace old cars, critics say these schemes are too limited and don't cover everyone who needs support. That leaves many feeling stuck. They can't afford the daily charge, but they also can't afford a new car. It's also worth noting that the controversy over ULEZ is not unique to London. Other cities in the UK, like Birmingham, Bath and Oxford, have introduced their own clean air zones, and similar debates are happening there too. In fact, cities all over Europe are experimenting with ways to cut emissions, from congestion charges to outright bans on older cars. London's ULEZ is just one part of a much bigger global trend, where governments are grappling with the challenge of balancing environmental goals with social and economic realities. What makes the London case stand out is the sheer scale of the city and the intensity of public reaction. London is a place where politics, money, and culture collide in particularly loud and dramatic ways, and so a policy like ULEZ naturally becomes a flashpoint. Supporters believe that history will vindicate the scheme, pointing to cleaner air, healthier children, and a city that is leading the way toward a greener future. Opponents, however, see it as a deeply flawed policy, one that punishes ordinary people, creates resentment, and risks deepening divisions between different communities within the city. At the heart of the controversy is a clash of values. Do we prioritize immediate fairness and affordability, or do we focus on the long-term health of the city and its people? Should individual drivers bear the cost of tackling pollution, or should the burden be shared more widely across society? These are difficult questions with no easy answers, and the London ULEZ debate shows just how messy the process of building a greener future can be. And that's why this issue continues to dominate headlines, spark protests and divide opinion. The ULEZ isn't just about cars and air quality, it's about how we balance fairness, health, money, and the environment in a rapidly changing world. Whatever your view, one thing is certain: the controversy around the London ULEZ is far from over, and it will continue to shape debates about transport, climate, and justice in Britain for years to come. Thank you for watching Britology, and I'll see you in the next one.